The time is just gone 19 minutes past 9 a.m. and we continue this morning looking at Egypt. We're talking about an execution frenzy that the Egyptian government has embarked upon. And the latest we've heard of 12 other people who are facing execution. We've seen so much happen in the past, and last year alone, between October and November, 57 people were executed. Since then, in the first half of the year, another 51 people, a number of people who were executed even in the month of Ramadan. And this repression continues by this brutal Sisi government. We joined this morning on the line by Khalid Helal with I Am a Human. Khalid, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Inayet. Shukran for having me.
Yes, Jummah Mubarak to you, and we do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us this morning. Now, obviously, there are major concerns at this point in time. The repression of the Sisi government, particularly against the members of the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood.
No. Yes, Brother Inayet, we were shocked in the last month to see that the Court of Cassation in Egypt, which is Egypt's highest appellate court, has confirmed the death sentences of, like you said, 12 civilians, amongst them, prominent opposition figures and leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. And their sentences form part of an unfair trial, a mass trial, related to the Rabaa sitting protests in 2013. And there are over 900 people who are part of this mass trial, all unfairly prosecuted. And obviously it includes, a former member of parliament, Dr. Muhammad al-Baltagi, as well as a former minister, Dr. Osama Yassin. But at the same time, it's no surprise, as we know today, that over 60,000 innocent political detainees languish inside Egyptian prisons, amongst them men, women, and children, obviously under the most inhumane conditions. And like you've said, under Sisi's rule, we've seen that death sentences, forced disappearances, torture inside prisons, and extrajudicial killings have become the status quo. In October and November of last year, like you said, Egyptian authorities executed 57 innocent women, men and women. And the spree of executions continued into the first half of this year, with 51 executions thus far. And we are now worried and concerned, obviously, that these 12 people would be executed anytime in the coming days. They are waiting for approval from President Sisi himself.
Yes, now, Brother Khalid, obviously we see the Sisi government like a runaway train at this point in time.
Yes.
And they are not stopping to the extent that absolutely merciless. And we've seen what had happened in the month of Ramadan, where even an 82-year-old man wasn't spared from execution.
Correct. Yes, obviously the goal of these executions, Brother Inayet, is to eradicate any form of potential opposition to Sisi's rule. And as you know, that the separation of powers is something that doesn't exist in Egypt. So Sisi's government completely co-opted the judicial system in Egypt, appointing special judges that take orders directly from Egyptian authorities, inhibiting any possibility of a fair trial for these people. So the judiciary basically has been completely reduced to a tool to just imprison and execute political dissidents in Egypt. Like you mentioned, we've seen that in Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, in fact, immediately after the month, on the second and third day of Eid, we've seen in August of 2013, the Egyptian security forces, under the direct orders of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, stormed the Rabaa and Al-Nahda squares in Egypt, and in the process killed close to 5,000 innocent men, women, and children in cold blood. Bodies were burnt. Up until today, there are bodies that have not been found because they have been burnt beyond recognition or just completely disposed of by the Egyptian authorities. And all of this because these people went out to peacefully protest against the overthrow of the first democratically elected president of Egypt, Dr. Mohammed Morsi.
Yes, and obviously many Egyptians and many of us right around the world who call for an end to oppression and injustice have not forgotten what has happened to Muhammad Morsi, rahimahullah, and obviously this in a move to basically wipe the Ikhwan out totally from the map. And that is the reason why we see a leadership, we see prominent people, obviously, and to prevent the Ikhwan from rising once again.
Correct, and it's not just the Ikhwan. It's any form of political opposition, any form or any dream of a democratic state existing in Egypt is something that cannot happen. Obviously, this serves the interests of Israel more than any other states, the interests of the West. If and should there be a democratic and Islamic-friendly government that should come out in Egypt, it would pose a direct threat to the state of Israel, and hence we, very, very little condemnation or very, very little attention given to this matter by the international community. But at the same time, we also know that the people in Egypt and these innocent civilians that are being sentenced to death on a daily basis do not have a voice, and hence we need to continue to put any kind of pressure, including media pressure and political pressure, on the international community and the Egyptian government in order to try and do whatever we can to to prevent these executions from happening, or at least make people aware of the situation.
Yes, but also I think, you mentioned interesting that it serves obviously the interests of Israel, and that is clear, that is blatant, and also the West not saying anything, but also in terms of some of the governments that have supported Egypt, governments like Saudi Arabia, for instance, who are extremely silent when when it comes to this repression and oppression that is taking place, because it's not, I think what goes on in Egypt, it's important because it could have an impact on what takes place in Saudi Arabia, because, we're looking at basically similar scenarios that are playing out in countries like the UAE and also in Saudi Arabia, Brother Khalid.
That is very accurate, Brother Inayet. Not only have these countries been silent, like you mentioned, no, they've been actually, in direct support of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. They had a direct role in the overthrow of Dr. Muhammad Morsi by funding Sisi and his regime. Up until today, they continue to fund Sisi and his regime. And as we know that these autocracies, these autocratic regimes in Saudi Arabia and in the UAE, obviously feel threatened by the prospect of any democratic regime in the area or in the Middle East, because as we've seen, in the Arab Spring, when one revolution started, it spread like wildfire across the Arab world, and hence they cannot give any opportunity for something like that to materialize out of fear that it will spread into their own governments or their own countries.
Yes. Now, obviously, for people like yourself, Khalid, and for many people right across the entire world, and I know you as I Am Human, what can be done?
Firstly, Brother Inayet, what can be done is to spread the message about the cause. Let people know what's happening on the ground. Let people know of the struggles of the Egyptian people, and to support the campaigns that take place on a daily basis to support the Egyptian cause. At the moment, we're running a campaign. We support we ask all our brothers and sisters to join us and to lend a hand where they can. At the moment we have a campaign running, I Am Human, in coordination with several other human rights organizations around the world, where we are recording videos of prominent civil society leaders and figures, and even professionals and normal people, to send a message of support to the Egyptian people, and obviously a message of condemnation against these executions. But mostly it's to keep the cause alive, because Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and his regime, what they're trying to do at the moment is kill the cause and kill any prospects of this cause taking place or moving forward. And they are trying to legitimize the regime in Egypt, and we cannot let that happen. And the way we do that is by keeping the cause alive, letting people know about what's happening. Shows like the ones that you host yourself, Jazakallah khairan, very, very beneficial in letting our Muslim community and the community in general know about what is happening in Egypt and other causes as well.
Yes, Brother Khalid. In fact, there's so much happening right across the entire world, and we see a lot of these causes, whether we're talking of the cause of Palestinians, for the Rohingya, the Uyghurs out in China, what is happening in Syria, in Kashmir, and right across the entire world. And I think this is something that sometimes we tend to forget that, we, for instance, Egypt, we put that on a back burner, but at the end of the day, these are abuses, this is oppression, this is injustice that is taking place on a daily basis. And it's important to keep all these causes, including the cause in Egypt, alive all the time.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Now, Brother Khalid, just as far as any actions that are concerned, like you mentioned, you're going to keep it alive. We're obviously looking forward to some of the material that will be coming out. You mentioned things like videos and any other related information. And just as far as getting this information out in the public domain, to maintain and to sustain this awareness campaign as far as Egypt is concerned, what can we expect?
Brother Knight, there are several campaigns running at the moment on social media. Obviously, social media is one of the best and biggest platforms that we can use to keep our causes alive. Everyone is on social media. And there's a lot of human rights organizations like the one we run ourselves and others that have campaigns running. There are Twitter campaigns running where we try and bring about a trend and uphold that trend in order to keep the cause alive and keep it within the public realm, so that people know what's happening and see that this topic is a topic that is currently active. Of course, on the higher side, we have approached some of our civil society leaders, some of our political parties, and we have received a very, very good response from them in terms of showing them messages of support, for giving messages of support for the Egyptian cause. Any form of political pressure, any form of, even if it's a tweet, a Facebook post, anything that will do to keep the cause alive and to shed some light on the cause goes a long way.
Well, Brother Khalid, Jazakallah khairan so much for that, for coming on, for talking to us, and for that update. Allah make it easy. Allah accept your efforts, and inshallah, Allah make it easy for yourself and for the people, for our brothers and sisters out in Egypt, inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran, Brother Inayet. Much appreciated.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Khalid Hilal, I am human, joining us this morning, just highlighting once again this execution frenzy that the brutal CC government has embarked upon. The time is just gone 9:32 a.m. We come back and we will obviously be taking a look at once again the Constitutional Court ruling as far as Jacob Zuma was concerned.